So, like, I don't know, a couple months ago, we ordered something from, Home Depot, like a home center. And then, we have to, so the driver came up to our garage, and then I was the only one. And then, he said, "Oh, I hope you don't mind me asking you, what is your nationality?" And then, like, And, like, so I was just thinking, if I look like a Caucasian, he will never ask that, right? And then I told this to the other Japanese friend, and they said, they're not supposed to ask those questions. And if I report to Home Depot, the driver will be reprimanded. But I said, I'm just gonna let it go, because I said, "Oh, I'm Chinese," like, even though I'm Japanese, I said, like, I will never see him again. So, but anyway, so I have a question, Tim and Maya. Do Japanese come up to you and ask you, what is your nationality? And then if they do that, how would you feel?
So Yuka, I love what you said. Thank you. You made me laugh. You always make me laugh. Again, this is coming from an older guy who grew up in a different time. Okay. But I grew up on the north side of Chicago in a neighborhood, and we had Italian families, Polish families, Irish families. There were a lot of, mostly from Europe, but ethnic groups in our neighborhood. And we used to ask each other, and we used to call each other names that now today I can't say I get in trouble. I get canceled, but we all did it to each other because we loved each other, right? It was just a fun way we joke about each other, use stereotypes to make fun of each other. And it was all done with love, right? And you can't do that now. It's a generational thing. But once upon a time in the 1960s and 70s, you could do it. And it was okay. And here's what's really interesting. So I moved to Hawaii in 2006. Hawaiians are exactly the same way. The Hawaiians and the Portuguese and the Filipinos, and they all make fun of each other and ask each other or they know, what their background is based on their name. Now, that said, just for like a random stranger to say to you, "What is your nationality?" I can't. I don't think it's appropriate. Personally, I would never do that unless we talked. And I felt a little connection. I might say, "Oh, are you Japanese? Oh, wow, I lived in Japan." I would do it as a point to have a discussion. The Japanese rarely ask me what I am because they just assume I'm American. I'm a white guy, Gene. Yeah, he must be an American. And that's my apologies to people from other countries. It's not my fault. I'm just telling you how they assume. So, but some people on that point call me a gaijin, and I do not take offense. In some cases, in most cases, there's no malice behind it at all. Even though some Americans or any non-Japanese might take offense to that, to being called gaijin. Okay. And on the rare occasion that it is said in a derogatory way, I still don't care because I don't value the opinion of somebody who thinks that way. Okay. So that's my answer. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
Well, I hope, Yuka, that yes.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't really offended or anything, but I was just thinking, that's he surprised me, by asking me. And then, it's so interesting because if he asked me, "Where are you from?" And I think that, that might be, it might be a better question rather than "What is your nationality?" I might be too sensitive. That's why I wanted to ask you guys. Thank you.
No, I think that's fair. I agree. Go ahead, Frank.
No, I was just going to say that, like we started this discussion with, a lot of this comes down to, how human beings relate to one another in those first seconds which they meet. And, I said in the United States, many times it comes down to what you sound like and what you look like visually, right? And growing up in a family where I spoke without an accent, my mother spoke with slightly heavier accent, and my grandmother spoke in maximum a very broken English. So we were asked thousands of times, where we were from. And we knew that there was a reason for it, is because we were different. And the people sometimes are viewing that difference as positive and sometimes as negative. But when you're different somehow, one of the natural first questions that someone is going to ask is, "Where are you from?" And as opposed to Tim, I ask that all the time when I'm in Japan, where I'm from. And as we discussed in some of the previous sessions, I try to use it as an advantage because I'm not from where they think I'm from. So that ends up being a natural conversation starter. And even this question of where you're from, it's been in the news, recently in Britain, when in, fairness to that whole argument, probably where are you from was a very valid question to ask the person that was asked that, because of how they choose to live their lives, their adopted names, the fashions that they wear. You can't see that as strictly a negative because of how human beings relate to each other in the first few seconds when they first open their mouths or when they first see each other.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to answer your question, Yuka, well, personally here in Japan, when people hear me speak, either in English or in Japanese, they immediately understand that I am neither Japanese nor I'm neither American nor Japanese. What I mean is that, because of the phonetic closeness of the Bulgarian language and the Japanese language, I don't have, that American accent when I speak Japanese. But, of course, at that time, people assume that probably I'm not American either, and they see me, I'm not Japanese. And when I speak with American people, of course, because of my Eastern European accent, everybody knows that I'm not American, I'm not a native speaker of the language. So, here people often ask me, where are you from? And I think that to me, it's just a very natural question. Or, what's your nani jin desu ka? Or something like that, right? And it's a natural question. I don't get offended by it because, I know. I mean, it comes from their immediate observations of, my appearance, also the way I speak the languages and so on. But also, as Frank mentioned, so this is, a good conversation starter. Also, as Tim said, sometimes people call me gaijin, and I don't take offense of that either, because it's just a word, and we have, the equivalent of that word in every language. So in English, you don't get offended when you say, oh, they're foreigners, because they're foreigners. They're not, let's say, they're not British, or they're not American, or they're not Hungarian or Bulgarian. So they're just foreigners, and that's a fact. So for me, the word gaijin, just as Tim said, in Japanese doesn't have any negative connotations, especially when I sense that there are no negative feelings in the person who uses that. So yeah, it's a kind of, once again, just a personal experience. And I know that for some people, I probably sound like somebody who lives, among what's that, fluffy pink clouds here, and probably I have never experienced anything bad in Japan and so on. That's not the case. The thing is that I usually choose to look at the bright side of life, and stay positive and just, deal with the negatives in a way that probably helps, to change them from negatives to positives. That's it.